On this episode of Pits To Podium and the Inside Line F1 podcast, we are going to dive down deep into the 2021 Formula One season so far and take a look at the weird and wacky moments. Well, they may not be as wacky as having a Formula One season finale at a car park of a hotel in Las Vegas, but still, they're going to be quite interesting. That's what's coming up. And also, we've got a really special announcement for you. So, without any further ado, let's get going for this episode of the Inside Line F1 podcast and Pits to Podium. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Soumil Arora. You might know me from the Disney Plus Hotstar web series called The Driving Force. And I'm so glad to introduce to you my co-host, as always, Kunal Shah, who is ex-marketing head of Force India and the current Formula One motorsport consultant for the VS Sport Network in Norway. And Kunal, this particular episode has a rather special twist to it, doesn't it?
It does. Hi, Soumil. Hi, everyone. It's great to be doing an episode at a time when everyone is waiting for Formula One.
Yeah.
It's a rare 3 week break just at the start of a new season. And frankly, all fans would have hoped that the start of the season would have been a triple header rather than having a 3 week break between the races, right? But we are going to use this time, since we have everyone's attention a little bit more, given that it's a break, right? So for Pits to Podium and the Inside Line F1 podcast, we have a special announcement, right? Puma has signed on as a partner of our channels, and that is fantastic news for us and for you guys. So in the days and weeks to follow, you will hear of how, as listeners, you guys also get to benefit from the partnership. So there are contests and promotions coming up. And Samuel, it resonates very strongly with me because forever faster, that's Puma's tagline, as we all know. And it's sort of very similar to what we do on our channels and all our social media and websites and the likes.
Exactly. We just have this intent of being faster, right, in the world of motorsport. And let's be honest, right? Let's not pretend as if you haven't ever seen any Puma motorsport goods. You've gone to the store. Quite often, we end up buying them as well. And you just know the quality, right? The kind of brands that are involved: Scuderia Ferrari, BMW Motorsport, Mercedes AMG F1, the likes. Just amazing stuff. I've got loads of them back in my wardrobe as well. You just have to go in and get there. And the best part is you can get special discounts through listening to the Inside Line F1 podcast and Pitch to Podium. Just exciting times, Kunal. Just lovely days.
Yes, and I'm gonna cut the chase. I'm gonna kill the suspense. At checkout, you guys can actually use Puma Inside Line to get a discount on your next purchase. So all the best, collecting all the goodies that you've always been waiting for, guys. And Somil, let's get to the sporting end of this episode, since the business end is now
Yes.
over.
You're right. So before I get to that, folks, if you're wondering if you didn't quite catch that name correctly, I'll put everything down in the comments below, even the links to Puma's website, so you can go in there and take a look at the favorite merchandise and perhaps, hopefully, even get it for yourself. It's a lovely piece of content, mind you. But Kunal, the quirky moments in this Formula One season so far, and let's be honest, we've only, what, 3 or 4 weeks in, including preseason testing, and there are already many of them. We've got a whole bunch of them. But what is your one quirky moment? Because today we're going to be out there grading all the quirky moments in hand. But if you had to pick the one A-star one, which would it be for you?
Now that's actually a tough one, because we've had the 3 days of preseason testing. We've had the three days of the first Grand Prix weekend. Over and above that, we've had almost 10 days of car launches,
Yeah.
liveries, and so on being announced. And if I may think of the one moment to share, and again, recency biases come into play here, but it was, the screenshot which a user or which a Formula One fan actually, shared on Reddit. It was
Ah,
of Daniel Ricciardo's race notes, how they were printouts and how he was reading those printouts. It's like what we pretty much read in every community, every forum, right? That it's like what we all do 5 minutes before going into the examination hall, right? Key points to remember, things that could be asked, and so
exactly.
on. And that was my quirkiest moment, I would say, yet. And for reasons more than just humor, Samuel, because Daniel Ricciardo is known to be this fun-loving, light-hearted guy who's always got the broadest grin on his face. But it just goes to show that he takes his racing so seriously. I mean, Not that we needed to know that,
Yeah.
but just goes to show how serious it gets when your helmets are on and you put your visor down and I'm sure I wasn't the only one zooming into those notes to see what was there, because McLaren were pretty honest with him, saying, okay, if you don't know what's happening, just ping on the radio saying what's the picture and we'll tell you. If
Yeah.
you read a fuel sign, just ignore it till we tell you, right? And if I were the other 9 teams, I would have probably known what race strategy McLaren was running, because plan A and plan B was the same: pit on lap 15 and pit on lap 35. So just so much that came out of that one screenshot, and it just made me wonder if this was like flying a space shuttle purely on memory. That's what Formula One drivers literally do in their cockpits.
It's just mind blowing the levels of detail, right? And I also once had a chance to check out a racing driver's notes. I won't say which one, but it happened at a international racing event here in India. And just the kind of detail, Kunal, that the racing drivers go into, and you kind of look at them and think, yeah, they're just driving a car, right? You just need to know your braking points and your turning points. But no, the mental notes that they put in there, the settings that they have to put in the car into, even a basic car. I mean, I won't say which one because it'll kind of give away who, what event, and what everything, but amazing levels of preparation that they have to go into. And the results are evident. And speaking of the McLaren strategy, it seems like whatever they do, the midfield team's just not close enough, seemingly. McLaren on a class of their own, much like last season Mercedes were. But this year, Kunal, things are a bit different, right? Things are slightly heating up right here, and one of their drivers having a bit of frustration in the car. Let's put it that way.
Yes, they are. But before we move on to the next quirky moment,
Uh-huh.
I have to ask you, which is your quirky
Ah,
moment of choice? We
okay.
can't
Now,
let you off the hook there.
no, you're right. I thought I could, because there's so many to choose from. I really got confused for a second, so I thought I'll just let it slide. But no, it has to be Fernando Alonso's sandwich paper gate. I mean, who has a sandwich paper stuck in their brake nuts of all places in the world? Imagine, right? It reminds me of those meme templates that we have. Who's going to win a multi-million dollar hyper-developed Formula One race car versus one sandwich paper wrapper boy? That kind of stuff. And you know who won in the end? It was the sandwich wrapping paper. Massive salute, but sheesh, that must have been frustrating, right? I
It
mean,
must have
next,
been even more so, given that not the that it wasn't that the circuit was full of fans.
it wasn't
It was
exactly.
reduced to maybe 10% of capacity. People who sort of had the the vaccine passport, as we call it, that they had taken the vaccine and hence could attend. And from what I could see in the television screens, there were barely any fans. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there must be one fan wondering that, yes, it was my rapper that got into Fernando Alonso for all we know.
I mean, exactly. Guys, just throw the rapper in the dustbin. It's not that hard. I mean, if you're a Fernando Alonso fan, that must have broken your heart realizing, oh, that's my sandwich wrapper. But again, that's who would have thought, right? Of all the weird retirement lists, I mean, the dumb ways to retire, that kind of a list can be made of a sandwich wrapping paper in your brake ducts. And yeah, it just raised his brake temperatures. The car couldn't sustain it. But it's amazing, Kunal. So many millions of dollars, so many man hours spent into developing, and just not any man hours, some of the best brains in the world. How could they have ever forecasted something like this?
But I'm glad it happened after we got all the Fernando Alonso magic on track. And I'm sure
Mm.
later in the show, quirky moments will definitely have some Fernando moments.
Exactly, yeah. That's just the way it is, right? With Fernando Alonso, you always expect some quirky moments with him left, right, and center. But now coming up to the team radio topic, Kunal. Yeah, Mercedes, they really were feeling the heat. And of all the people in Mercedes you could expect to feel the heat, it was a Finn. You don't expect that to happen. They're cool with all weather.
They're cool with all the weather. And I thought, I never thought I would ever hear a driver in the hybrid turbo era turn around and say, this Mercedes is undrivable. I never thought we would hear that for a Mercedes. I mean, for God's sake, let's just think of what Mick Schumacher thinks back driving that Haas. you know, and Nikita Mazepin, since Maz's spin has become a a very interesting controversy, which we will sort of touch upon. But yes, there was Valtteri Bottas. He said the Mercedes is undrivable. It was in one of the practice sessions. But for me, it was again the other Finn, Kimi Raikkonen, that took the cake away when. Can you hear me? Can you hear me not? Can you hear me? It was, it's like what's been defining all virtual communication in the last 12, 14 months through the whole work from home scenarios we have.
Exactly. I mean, back in the day, before the lockdowns, everyone, no, I wouldn't say rejected Skype, but there was this running meme that Skype, half of the time, you're just spending, not even Skype. I mean, it would seem like I'm just completely degrading one software, but all the video conferencing softwares at that time, people said that you're spending 50% of your time just asking, can you hear me? Can you hear me? And I guess it's not just us mere mortals who are facing that issue, it's even the Formula One drivers and their engineers. But the quirky part, Kunal, we still don't know if Kimi was able to hear him or not. It still hasn't been revealed.
I expect this to be a question in the open media session when the drivers reach Imola. I'm pretty sure somebody's going to ask him just for the fun of it.
We may never even know. I mean, Kimi being Kimi, he may just end up saying, "Yeah, I heard him," or maybe not. Let's see, whatever it may be. But I hope next time out they're able to hear each other. But even without the hearing aids, Kimi was very good, and that just goes to show that when the one-time world champion and resident Formula One entertainer is in the mood, he could just do anything. He was very impressive in Bahrain.
He was, couple of seconds just off getting Lance Stroll for P10, and that would have been excellent for Alfa Romeo. Not so much so for Aston Martin,
Mm.
but sort of moving on to the next quirky moment, and I'm
Oh,
going to bring
Kunal, I'm sorry, we
yes.
forgot to grade this one. Now, why would you grade this radio aspect of Kimi Raikkonen among the list of quirky incidents?
So there
Perhaps,
is a list of quirky incidents, and there's a list of Kimi Raikkonen radio messages, right? I think this was definitely probably his top three. I would say, leave me alone is unbeatable,
of
and
course,
then maybe the steering wheel comes to my mind next, and then this one. That's where I would grade it.
a certain grade A incident, this one for Kimi Raikkonen. But yes, next up, huh? One of their rivals in the midfield, Daniel Ricciardo. Now, we mentioned his pre-race notes, but there was other stuff surrounding him as well. He had a hectic weekend, Gunal.
He did, I'm sure, it's going to be elbows out when both the McLaren drivers are next to each other in the opening lap for every other race of 2021. Lando Norris slipped by, Daniel Ricciardo had floor damage from Pierre Gasly's, incident and so on. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be an intense battle to watch, and it's also going to be as much fun off track as we've known it, right? And
Mm.
what I actually even liked about the whole Daniel situation was, how McLaren were making him feel at home despite it being his first race only, because
Yeah.
we all remember when Lewis Hamilton had just switched teams to Mercedes, he sort of drove into the McLaren pit box
He
by
did.
muscle memory, only to then drive into the Mercedes pit box. But McLaren sort of, being wiser from all the previous situations, when Daniel was coming in for his first pit stop, they actually told him, look out for the boys in orange. And just so heartwarming, you want to help your, driver in every way possible. And you're telling the driver, hey, look out for the guys in orange. Don't go for the guys in yellow and black. Of course, they're now blue this
Blue,
season.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's a plus for McLaren, it's good in this aspect that they've switched from the silver. Otherwise, those Mercedes confusions may still be running wild. But hey, speaking of Ricciardo, he made contact with Pierre Gasly, and it's completely off the script this one. But I just realized that Pierre Gasly had an amazing moment in one of the pre-race interviews. He was found hopping, skipping, and jumping along after the interview was done. Just the positivity that the man spreads. It's heartwarming, right? He is jumping along back to his garage and like a bunny skipping around like that. It is just so much fun. Pierre Gasly, how can you hate Pierre Gasly unless you're Helmut Marko? But that's a thing for later on in the episode.
It is, and Pierre Gasly is going to be one of the drivers to watch out for. When I saw him make contact on the opening lap, or whenever he lost his front wing, I was like, oh my God, there go all my fantasy Formula One points, right? Because I am pretty certain he is one of the most chosen drivers, in everyone's fantasy league teams because he
Mm,
comes at an affordable cost and he's sort of outscoring the cost that he comes at.
yeah.
So just excited to see how 2021 lands up for him with, Yuki Tsunoda and, Max Verstappen and even Checo Perez.
Yeah. And speaking of fantasy leagues, our own Pits to Podium Grand Prix prediction competition is on. And you know what, Kunal? You just touched upon a very good point because many people actually said that Pierre Gasly could be around the top three, for that one. Of course, it didn't materialize that way, but keep playing, keep predicting. Links to our social media channels down in our description. But before we go on to the next one, Kunal, where would you rate this one? How much would you grade this? Watch out for the boys in orange message.
I think I would probably grade it more as a very warm message than a more quirky or a funny message. A very
Mm.
It just goes to show how teams think to every aspect of the race weekend to make sure that their drivers are comfortable, especially the ones that have changed teams, and there are several of them that have changed this season. So
Oh, yeah.
I would say this was definitely a very very warm moment, one that didn't sort of make it through the timeline early on in the weekend. We sort of had to wait for it to come out later.
Exactly. Good moment. I would say B minus. It's a good one, right? Really heartwarming to see what McLaren can do for them. But his teammate, Lando Norris, he's been in the news recently, Kunal, but I feel that I shouldn't even say this because it's only normal now. It seems like it happens every other day. Lando Norris
Yeah.
is in the news. A proper fan favorite, mind you. But one of his recent comments has kind of stirred up the waters a little bit.
It has, Lando Norris came out in he came out in favor of Nikita Mazepin's opening lap crash, and to me that's actually again a good sign of the camaraderie that drivers sort of share in Formula One. Uh, Also, good to see that everyone has each other's back, even if they sort
Yeah.
of don't get along as personalities, because I assume it's difficult to get along with Nikita Mazepin as a personality. Again, it's just a judgment based on what I'm passing. But you know what we should do, Soumil? We should actually discuss this in more depth this
Hmm.
weekend. So we'll actually do a Facebook live show, guys, where Soumil and I will talk about media portrayals and driver perceptions and so on. But yes, Lando Norris coming out in support of Nikita Mazepin, extremely unexpected for him to
Yeah.
do that. Lando Norris, of course, also shared his views on the whole Verstappen overtaking Hamilton before reaching the exit and stuff. So I expect this to become news in Imola. But I have to end this point by talking about Nikita Mazepin, right? So several infringements he had, especially one that everyone was puzzled about in qualifying, about the whole gentleman's driver agreement that you have.
Yep.
You sort of don't wait to you sort of wait so that you don't spoil somebody else's qualifying lap. And Nikita Mazepin has sort of come out and saying, I didn't even know of a gentleman's agreement being in place. And to me, that just sounds puzzling on two levels. First is the more real one, which is that this agreement goes all the way in from junior formula. So it's not something that's, Formula One drivers suddenly bring out in the open. But the second is that it's known as the gentleman's agreement.
Ouch. That was a very subtle hit, Kunal. That on that bombshell, there's not much I can say on that one. Nah, but poor old Nikita Mazepin. I just hope that. I just hope he grows right. We don't want to put anyone down. Let's just hope that he kind of grows from what we know him to be right now. Let's hope that he can become a better driver and a better person as well, because his values may not resonate with all of us. But I would say you're just a product of your environment, perhaps. Maybe he wasn't growing up in. There's no right or wrong environment, right?
True.
It's another softer discussion. It's just the environment that you're a part of. Maybe what we think is wrong must be right for him. So let's
Yeah,
hope that he grows as a person. That's the main thing we can say. But a hefty blow that one. But it's
hefty. And I actually read something funny on Twitter, right? So
uh-huh.
Haas, I was reading that Haas should basically charge Nikita Mazepin for for fixing all the cars after his accidents,
Oh, aren't they
and
already? I think that was a
well,
part of the compensation he paid in to get in that seat for the first place.
but it should be a direct deduction from his sponsorship money. So for example, when he runs out of that money, that fund, the damage
Wait
fund
a
that he
minute.
brings.
Did you say that he runs out of money, Kunal? Are you serious? Have you read who his family members are? That's
Yeah,
not gonna
well,
happen.
but the tweet said that if Nikita Mazepin's accident costs are charged to that sponsorship account that he brings,
Uh-huh.
it could very well be that he'll be out of Formula One by the fifth race just by blowing all his sponsorship money in his damage budget.
And you thought Grosjean crashed a lot.
Exactly.
Let's see. Let's hope he just grows as a driver. But his teammate Kunal, just the opposite end of it is so warm and fuzzy, and I don't know. It's just something of Mick Schumacher, right? I wouldn't bring out the Michael part again because we've discussed it and perhaps run it to the ground already. But he was getting tips from Kimi Raikkonen. That how beautiful was that to see? I I I, I don't know. I know Kimi has a son in Robin, but it just felt like it's Vettel and Raikkonen who are just grooming Mick Schumacher along, and it's just one of the warmest things in the world to see, right? And that's what you watch sport for. These kind of moments in the end.
Absolutely, Raikkonen giving tips to a Schumacher. I don't think it would have happened with his father and Kimi, but it's very heartwarming, and it's like you said, the two elderly drivers, elderly world champions, have taken him under their wings and said, "Hey, we'll sort of help you." I would have, expected Raikkonen and Schumacher to have been partners at Alfa Romeo, like we've
Yes,
been saying before, and even in all the pre-race stuff, I think Vettel and Mick were wearing a T-shirt with the same message. Several messages that they put out in favor of the whole V race as one campaign, but
ooh,
just very, very warm, very statesman-like. Very, it's like the royalty of Formula One. That's how you just feel every time Mick is around you, right?
yeah, exactly. And that brings its burdens, that brings its pressure. But I think this is a definite A-level moment, right? Just seeing Kimi Raikkonen grooming Mick Schumacher. Uh, uh, this is why you watch sport in the first place. To see stories like this one and to just see this come together is lovely. But then again, he finds himself in I mean, let's be honest, the worst car on the grid. I hope he comes out of that one.
I hope so. I hope, like I keep saying, I hope he emulates George Russell
Yes.
in qualifying and just is able to evoke all that sentiment that Russell brings out each time we see him in that Williams racing car.
Exactly. Russell has also been one phenomenon. He knows a thing or two about putting a good performance in circuit, but not getting things rewarded in his way. But next up, we have an interesting point. Again, see, it's a repetition with Kimi Raikkonen. You cannot make a list of quirky moments without having Kimi Raikkonen in it at least twice. Here's he here. Here's him here thrice. Now, this funny moment we didn't see in the race itself, but we saw it in one of Formula One's what is Formula One's? Goodness, that's a quirky moment for you. But one of Formula One's preview videos for the season where they asked the drivers, why did you choose the number you chose? And it's a lovely way that Formula One inculcated this, Kunal, because we saw, I think it was Charles Leclerc saying that I wanted seven. I think another one of the drivers, Bottas, saying that I wanted number seven. And they shared their emotional stories about, hey, I like this number. I've wanted this all along. A footballer used to wear this number. And then comes Kimi Raikkonen. Can you tell our dear listeners and viewers, Kunal, what Kimi Raikkonen said for hogging up a number that two other potential future world champions wanted to take?
He just said I was asked to choose a random number and I just chose seven very randomly. So
Kimi Raikkonen, what an absolute legend. But a warmer moment in this one was that he wanted to choose six, but he actually gave that to Nico Rosberg because his dad won with the number six back in, wait, KK Rosberg won in 1982. That's the year. So he said,
was it 82? Was it 83? I think it was 83 because that was the year I'm born, right? I'm going to.
wait,
Uh,
so quick digging in. No, it was KK Rosberg in 1982, winning the Formula One World Championship at a joint tied record with the lowest wins
yes.
in a season at one win.
One.
And you know where the season finale was? The track that I mentioned earlier in the introduction, Las Vegas, in the parking lot of Caesar's Palace. It makes me wince every time, every single
Yes.
time I hear about it.
But this is my learning on the show. Never question Soumil's history on Formula One. It
Bah,
was 1982.
I get a few recent ones wrong. It's just some weird stuff. I remember the old stuff, I get the new one. It just tends to happen quite often. But wow, that this was some moment, Kunal. I think this is a clear A plus plus. You can't take anything away from this one.
I don't think Kimi ever would, get rated below A for all we know, for all the fun he brings to Formula One.
Exactly. And I know we're going slightly off topic, but some eagle-eyed people also spotted in another one of Formula One's YouTube videos that Kimi, of course, we know Kimi Raikkonen, he will not give an answer beyond 15 seconds or 15 words, depending on what mood he's in. But the kids asked him a question in a lovely feature that Formula One did. Kids asking questions to F1 drivers. It's a brilliant idea, brilliant marketing solution, that one. And Kimi actually spoke for more than 30 seconds, Kunal. That happened.
Yeah, and he actually gave advice to this young driver on how to become a Formula One driver, and who better than Kimi, given how much training he's doing with Robin in his free time.
Yeah. Oh, that you should watch. After this episode is done, I mean, as if you haven't already, go to Kimi's social media and check out the kind of fun stuff he does with Robin Raikkonen. Incredible. But speaking of young people doing incredibly fun things and incredibly good things, Kunal, one Yuki Tsunoda has just lit up the sport.
He has, with some outstanding driving this weekend. He drove fantastic, in the race. He forward, and just before the race he drove in reverse just at the timely moment. It would have been a shame, if he would have received a penalty for, a starting grid infringement, being out of place at the start. But it just goes to show, he was full of nerves, I'm sure, when he sort of got into the wrong grid slot, still managed to get it out in reverse, pulled off some fantastic overtaking moves, one on Fernando Alonso. And we've seen in the post race, communication that's come out, how not just Yuki, but his father is a big fan of Fernando Alonso, right? So I'm sure
Yeah.
it must have been very, very nostalgic for Yuki to sort of drive past Fernando. And then the best of all, the last lap move on
Oh.
Lance Stroll for P9.
I actually wrote a detailed featured article about Yuki Tsunoda and his race, and I specified on that bit about Yuki just having that confidence in the car that that wasn't there with the AlphaTauri. I mean, it has grown definitely, but just coming in your first race and having that level of confidence in the car that one Lance Stroll couldn't do, and plus AlphaTauri just wrapped circles around them in terms of their strategy because they went 5 laps longer, and Yuki made it work. Hats off. That is one way to make a debut. But speaking of the quirky moments, Kunal, I know we've mentioned this in a past episode, but and you were amazing to bring that point up. When he came to the media interviews, he just had to tilt his mic down to adjust to his height. But
He did, and it was a very, very funny, very, very endearing one again. And you mentioned Yuki's overtakes, and it reminded me of Daniel Ricciardo from his days of with Red
yes,
Bull. It was very much like the lick the stamp and send it kind of overtaking moments in just his first racing weekend in Formula One. So what Yuki does in 2021 is going to be fantastic to follow. Could he be the replacement to Max Verstappen, or could he be the partner to Max Verstappen in the Red Bull Racing garage? That's going to be the one story that we all sort of follow through the season, Sommel.
not an easy place to be, that one. Many people will tell you that. That is not an easy place to be in. But oh man, I think this is going to be a very poorly sounding transition. We have to speak about Fernando Alonso next. That's I was thinking of saying that another place where it is really tricky for teammates to be is with Fernando Alonso. Ocon is experiencing that. I mean, the relationship is not hostile yet. It will once the
Yet.
stakes get higher. That definitely is going to happen. But Alonso just had his fair share of incidents, starting off, of course, with the sandwich paper gate. But then he made some few interesting comments as well, as he should. Fernando Alonso, I mean, we know that he is one of the best in the world, but he was just completely brutally honest about it. He said, I'm better than anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Alonso magic on track in qualifying in the race. We saw we also saw the same magic that Fernando is known for all these years, which is all the off-track stuff that he does. When he claimed that he was a better driver than anyone else on the grid, which of course he sort of clarified, and toned down a few days later, and he said he was misquoted. But I think one of the other lines which I don't think he was misquoted on was when he said, we are still in 2021 and Ferrari aren't winning, right? Brutally honest, brutally Fernando, brutal truth, right? And that's what it is. And I think it's going to be 22, maybe 23 by the time Ferrari even thinks of winning. At least, again, you can't say anything about 2022 form just
Yeah.
yet. But well, brutal Fernando Alonso. That's how we love him.
That's how we love it. But there's also the flip side, Kunal. When you point a finger at someone, there are what? Okay, depends on if you call a thumb a finger or not. But okay, three definite fingers pointing back at you. And in that sense, even Alonso hasn't won for that while. So,
Well, he could say he went on to win the Le Mans twice.
he,
He
that
won the
was.
World Endurance
Oh,
Championship. He had some fun at Dakar, or Dakar as we would call it, right?
hmm.
And then let's hope that he sort of comes back and tries the Indy 500 at some point of time in his life, because
Yes.
I still love Fernando for doing what he did, which is racing across different categories of motorsport while he could.
But now McLaren and Fernando Alonso have recognized that the Indy 500 is no easy cookie. It's not just turning left all the time. That race, I don't know. For some reason, it just doesn't get enough respect in the Formula One circles. People just say, oh, there are 100 million ad breaks, which there are. People say it's just turning left, which it is essentially, if you just boil it down. But the challenge of the Indy 500, full props to Fernando Alonso to going out to other championships and exploring that sort of stuff. Just simply Fernando. And I think this definitely can his quotes and his sort of incidents definitely do get a B grade for sure.
Yes. Fernando Alonso. B grade quotes, A plus grade driving. I definitely agree.
A plus grade driving because that Alpine is not an easy car to drive. They've just switched the radiators and it seems like a big bulky machine now, but he's made it work somehow, made it work better than someone else. And someone else who hasn't quite made his new machine work, hmm, Sebastian Vettel. Now, we
Ah,
thought, Kunal, that the moment he would come to Aston Martin, everything would change. We thought that Vettel would once again become the four-time world champion as we know him to be, but it hasn't happened. And he is the first person to come out and recognize that I still don't feel at home in this car. And kind of you can't blame him, right? It's only been 3 days, not 3 days, but 3 days of testing, 6 days of driving that he's got in that car. That's not much. So,
yeah, and in fact, even in testing, he split duties. So,
he did.
fairly little track time along with all the mechanical gremlins he had and so on, right? So, I'll put it this way: Fernando Alonso, the statesman, made better headlines than Fernando Alonso, the driver, at the opening round in Bahrain. Right? I love the
Yeah.
whole story that came up about how not Fernando, Sebastian Vettel. Sorry, my apology. How Sebastian complained, to Stefano Domenicali about the fly pass that the Gulf Air aircrafts would do, and then promptly they used biofuel for their fly pass. So he's playing Captain Planet these days, which is not bad, and also reminds me of how he was trying to encourage Ted to not waste that big slice of cheese he had taken to explain rule changes. This was during one of the preseason tests, and he just told Ted that, hey, you can eat the cheese and maybe use a piece of paper. And it was one of those rare times you found Ted in the spot. And
Yeah.
and then of course we all know of Vettel's letter that he wrote for Carlos Sainz when they were racing together in Red Bull Racing. And this is when Vettel left for Ferrari and Carlos Sainz was doing all the simulator duty and so on. So very heartwarming headlines, and very quirky, very Sebastian Vettel-esque moments from Sebastian in 2021 already. And like you said, Soumil, we're all waiting for the four-time world champion to show up.
Yeah. But off the track, who would have known 10 years ago, right? Sebastian Vettel, who seemed like the brash, arrogant young kid, and deservingly so. He had all the talent in the world, still does for that matter, coming up. And who would have thought he'd be this sensitive in a good way to environmental issues. I resonate with Sebastian Vettel now. It just makes me love him even more. And plus, of course, Aston Martin doing their bit to make sure that they are a team that's loved even more. But they have to add a few things on the track for that. Yeah, they can do a better job.
Yeah, few
Rake
points,
Angles.
few.
Rake Angles. They are influencing them a lot.
Yes, I tell you, Soumil, 2021, and this is Formula One's quirky moment.
Uh-huh.
2021 will be known for the low rake versus high rake philosophy than for Verstappen versus Lewis Hamilton. That's my gut
Mm.
feeling that the storyline for the 23 races or whatever 20 plus races we'll have will be low rake versus high rake.
No, it's a discussion that has rattled up quite a few people, and that's probably the reason why Mercedes is, let's say, not as fast as they look like. But in relative pace, I'm sorry, that is to Red Bull Racing, which has also created some controversy because a differential issue recently came into Max Verstappen's car at the Bahrain Grand Prix, which seemingly cost him 3/10 of a second. And if he was that fast with the differential issue, Kunal, what have they done to make sure that the car is all of a sudden that much faster than a Mercedes? Because if you take a look at the results from last season, Red Bull were okay. Just being honest, they were not close past. They were far, far away. In one season, that has completely transformed. And yes, you can owe a lot of that to the Rake Angles.
You can, but I think this is where probably there's also some gamesmanship and some mental, mind games to play. Because Helmut Marko spoke about the differential. Before that, it was about engine temperatures costing him 310. So if you were
Yep.
to add up, basically what Marko is saying is that, Max Verstappen would have been 6/10 quicker than Lewis Hamilton. And I'm sure, given that there's still 2 weeks to the next race or thereabouts, or there'll probably be a third issue that would cost him another 3/10, and suddenly it would be like, hey, Max should have been a second quicker than Lewis Hamilton. But like I said, let's just see how it all unfolds. Rake angles or not, it's going to still be a very entertaining season. And just I would say, irrespective of who wins, it's going to be a win on merit. It's like we don't say,
Mm.
Jensen Button won because of the double diffuser. We just know that he won the 2009, World Championship when he did at Braun GP, and that's how I would treat the results in 2021 as well, Samuel.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's doing a very, very good job. But is it a job better than Pierre Gasly? Is a question that Helmut Marko is asking. And he said that if you put Max Verstappen in that AlphaTauri, he would be 2/10 of a second faster. Huh. Now, judging by my tone and the expression on my face, it would seem that I am surprised by this. Because, yes, in all honesty, Pierre Gasly has improved a lot. I don't think Verstappen will be 2/10 faster. But then again, why are we surprised? Who is the quote coming from? It is Helmut Marko. And he's known for these quirky quotes like that, right? And so for that, I won't even give it an A because we're getting used to these sort of quotes right now. But at least this time, Kunal, the source was legitimate, unlike what we had last season.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes, the fiasco from last season, right? But I think I'm just happy to see how Pierre Gasly proves himself on track. It was very heartwarming to read his, story in his own words from last season. Which is great because otherwise, our friends at Autosport would have written their own story saying this is
Yeah.
Pierre Gasly's story, just the way
Without
they've done
even
that with
Nick
Nick
Heidfeld.
Heidfeld. But yes, Marco's gone and made some interesting comments for Checo Perez. One of them being that Perez's race pace was at Max Verstappen's level, and I think that's really heartening to hear. Especially from Marco. And I'm amazed at Checo Perez. To have the formation lap issue, to sort of restart his car. New car, new steering wheel, new systems, processes, procedures, to do it without radio support. I, I think that was just phenomenal, and it just shows what a fighter he is at the very core. Not giving up. He knows he's got limited chances at Red Bull Racing, given how they could
Yeah.
literally change their minds. 8 or 9 races into the season. So to me, fantastic stuff from Checo Perez. Again, a very quirky, very Perez-esque
Yeah.
moment from Checo Perez himself.
Exactly. I think, and our Indian viewers may resonate or realize what we're talking about. He's taken a few lessons from Tapsi Pannu from the movie Mission Mangal, whatever that was. Just turn it off and turn it on again. And that's what they did for a satellite that went to Mars, apparently, in that movie. It doesn't make any sense. But hey, if it works for Sergio Perez, may as well work for you. So next time you're facing technical issues or a loss in power, just turn it off and on again. Who knows? Maybe you can climb back from P20 to P5 with an extra pit stop and just put in the drive of your life.
And be
Works for
rated
some.
driver of the day, you know.
And be rated driver of the day, exactly.
But Soumil, I think we are forgetting one important piece in giving
Uh-huh.
credits to this whole power on, power off, and restart your machine thing. It has to be to Windows and Bill Gates, because
Mm.
he globally led us to believe if something goes wrong, just restart your machine and you'll be fine, and things will sort of, fall in place. And that's, I think we need to make sure we give credit to Microsoft for what happened to Checo Perez. Restart on and off, and he was back in the race.
I don't know, man, because it restarts fine and on and off is good. But after 2 years, the system will suddenly start to become slower after every restart. Checo, make sure that your team upgrades your car constantly because if it's a Microsoft server, that it's going to be slower by the time you get to the 6 month. Definitely. Just tech companies being tech companies.
Yes, I guess so. But the last one, Soumil, before we bring this episode to a close, was when a person actually sued Red Bull, the energy drinks,
Uh huh.
for not growing wings. Red Bull gives you wings, and they didn't give him wings, and this person actually sued Red Bull. And there was an out of court settlement from what I was reading.
Yeah. So maybe that's the reason why they went to Red Bull gives you wings with a double I instead of a WINGS after that case. But man, I don't even know what to say. This is A grade level quirky. I know there have been a few on this list that have been A grade level quirky, but come on. Who does that?
Well,
And
you never know. Max Verstappen does that if he doesn't end up getting a car that lets him win the world championship at some point.
oh,
And now they'll say, we give you wings and we give you a power unit as well, because everything you need is Red Bull branded.
oh, that was a hefty blow. And he could do that, because he has a performance clause in his contract. So take notes, Max. Take notes. But I think he won't need it this year. I think he'll be fine. I mean, if we consider all of Helmut Marko's quotes and all the issues that seem to be popping up in the Red Bull every other day, I think he should be fine by the end of the season. Just 2 seconds faster than everyone else. Not much. Yeah, fine. It was a close one for Max. That's what we'll be saying at the end of the year.
Absolutely. It'll be a close one, and we'll be here reporting it live each time.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll be having more pre-race and post-race shows on the Inside Line F1 podcast and Pits to Podium. So you know what to do. Subscribe, like, depending on whatever platform it is. It keeps on changing. You know the deal, right? But make sure you leave a positive comment if you liked it. If you didn't, make sure you leave a constructive comment. We can decide on things that we should work upon and improve. And also, folks, reminder for the Puma deal. The discount coupon is down in the show notes. And keep a very keen eye because we've got something very, very special with Puma Motorsport coming in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned right here. But thank you so much for being a part of this one, Kunal. This was an unusual episode, judging by our usual standards, but a fun one nonetheless. I hope you enjoyed it, folks.
I did, Soumil. It was a lot of fun. So I look forward to doing the live stream with you this weekend, and we'll put out some more details on our social media handles. And thanks for, this fun conversation, Soumil.
Oh yeah, likewise. My muscles are slightly hurting from smiling so much and laughing so much. So I guess I can say that I've done my exercise for today. Well, hey, there's a bombshell to end on. But folks, thank you so much for listening, for watching, for hearing. See you around. See you for the next one, and we shall see you for the live stream later on this week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.